Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the RePlay podcast. A lot of exciting news dropping this week, especially in the world of gaming. If you're a fan of TellTale games or CD Projekt Red, then you know what I'm talking about. But before we get into that, of course, we have to start off talking about Disney and D23. Coming out of the event, of course, a lot of announcements surrounding their Star Wars IP and TV and film and other projects that are currently in the works over there. And we got our first look at the Rise of the Skywalker. We've gotten announcements for She-Hulk, for Obi-Wan, the Mandalorian, Moon Knight even, and essentially they're Disney saying that we have something for everyone. And with that, they even announced what is it, Raya the Last Dragon, which looks eerily similar to Netflix's The Dragon Prince. And I probably don't say it often enough. If you have not checked out The Dragon Prince on Netflix, be sure to go and watch it. It's by the same creators from Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Legend of Korra. And it's just a fantastic series. There are two seasons so far, and hopefully Netflix, if you're listening, there needs to be a third and a fourth. But it's a fantastic series, and as I said, eerily similar to what Disney has now announced. But essentially, again, what Disney is saying is that um, if you come to our platform, and they're certainly making it, they're making a good argument now. If you come to our platform, you will find things for everyone, and that kind of brings me to the one of the more notable announcements that came out of D23, where one of the representatives, when asked, actually said that the Disney streaming platform will not feature any R-rated content. Of course, this has been this has been in discussion for quite some time. So this is not necessarily, it shouldn't come as a surprise to most people, because I believe most would have assumed that this is a natural direction for Disney to go in. With their acquisition with Hulu, the argument can be made that most of their more mature properties will actually end up on that platform. But I mean, it's a bit of a coy move, and a brilliant strategy on Disney's part. Because here's the thing, I mean, while I've long said before that I prefer to have one platform to be able to access all my content, whether you have a family or you have kids, that all should be possible on one platform. But what Disney has done here is they're essentially saying to their customers that we do not want to accrue additional costs attempting to amalgamate to put together all these two platforms into Hulu and Disney Plus and ESPN into one. We don't want that cost to fall on us. So we're gonna ask you, the consumer, to actually go to Hulu, and if you don't have Hulu already, that is to subscribe to Hulu as well. So they're essentially moving the cost from Disney themselves onto the consumer, and they're doing it in a very smart way where most people are not even thinking about it. Because if you didn't already have Hulu and you had no desire to have Hulu, but you do want to see more mature content with this streaming platform that you're going to be purchasing, you don't expect to be told you need to go and purchase another one to be able to access that information as well. It would be as if Netflix decided today that, okay, you know what, we're gonna split Netflix. We're gonna have mature content on a separate platform, and we're gonna have family-friendly content on one. But we're gonna attach two separate prices to each of them, and you guys need to pay separately. Now, if Netflix, think about it, if Netflix actually did that today, fans would be outraged. We would be outraged. But Disney's doing the very same thing. So why is there no outrage for that? So, and Disney's doing smart about it. Very smart, right? So I mean, they've pushed the family angle to say this is what you want. This is what's most important. But if you want mature content, you can pay an additional fee, and you can have it on Hulu. So I mean, that's where we're at now. We can go back and forth about what should or shouldn't be. I personally believe that they should have a single platform, and I do know that they've now offered a bundle service for all three, Hulu, Disney Plus and ESPN for a bundled price at a reduced cost, I believe. So that's a step in the right direction, but again, it's still three separate platforms. It's still three platforms. I mean, what other streaming platforms have done? Even Hulu themselves, Netflix, Amazon. They have a kid-friendly profile where your child can go on if you do not wish for them to have access to more adult-oriented content. It's not complicated. So I mean, have a single platform where all this can actually be accessed from. So but it's where it's at. I mean, I don't see this actually deterring anyone from actually using Disney Plus. As I've mentioned before, I'm not completely on board as yet, because for me personally, aside from having a single platform to access all the information, I'm still not convinced that Hulu has the kind of content that I want. No, I'm signed up with Netflix for the most part, because Netflix is where I can go to find unique and original properties. Some of my favorite series, Sense8, Stranger Things, Dark, um, Sex Education, there are Altered Carbon. There are just a lot of unique properties that I can go to Netflix and find. And as I mentioned before, Dragon Prince and a lot of other Dragon Prince, She-Ra, and a lot of other more family-friendly content, but it's all in one place. And so I prefer that direction, and I do hope that eventually Disney can get there. So for me personally, I'm not on board with Disney Plus just yet, and that's mostly in part because I'm not that huge a Star Wars fan. I do like Star Wars, but after I've gone to the movie theaters to see most of these films, I'm not really going to watch them a second or a third time unless I see them on cable somewhere. So it doesn't have the content that is attractive to me, but I do know it does for many. So for those who are interested, I don't see this no R-rated content being a deterrent. Of course, what does it mean for the MCU properties? And I mentioned Moon Knight earlier on, and it's a bit interesting because here we are. I mean, fans vehemently defend Disney in whatever decisions that they make, and we saw that clearly with the Sony and Disney debacle that happened over a week ago, right? Even when Disney is not in the right, fans find it difficult to question it, and that's a dangerous precedent. But I mean, it's the danger of a monopoly that many have not seemed to have caught on to just yet. But and when they do, it will be a bit too late. But it's where we are, and I mean, the R-rated content for the MCU. There is a question as to whether or not the MCU actually needs R-rated content, and I will agree with the argument that it doesn't need to be R-rated. But the question what you should be asking is, will this serve the character, right? Will this be truthful to what the actual character is? You know, of course there are some characters in the Marvel comics that go hard R, Deadpool of course being one of them. Moon Knight being another, and Blade himself. So, what happens with those characters, right? I mean, we've had an announcement for Blade so far, and I think it's safe to say that at this point, because of the announcement, Blade is going to be a part of the MCU, and with that, you will not see an R-rated Blade film, and that's disappointing to me. And I mean, many fans can argue that okay, Blade doesn't need to be R, but you've clearly not been following Blade for a while if you think the character doesn't need to be R. Of course, the word "need" here. I mean, nothing needs to be. It needs to be R. They could have Blade sparkle in Twilight, and I'm sure someone would go out and watch it. So it doesn't have to be R-rated, but it serves the character, the core of who the character is, to be an R-rated film. That's the world that the Blade lives in. It's not cotton candy and rainbows in the Blade's world. And the same for Moon Knight or Daredevil or the Punisher. It's just not. So these characters can be toned down, but I mean the question is, it, is that is that still the same character once you've done that? Though you're changing the world that the character actually lives in and the purpose. Because listen, many of these characters do what they do because of how gritty and dark and gruesome the world is, and how people are in that world are treated. That forms a part of who they are, and they act as a result of it. When you remove that, then the threat becomes less than it actually was, and you wonder why they do what they do. Um, so it's gonna be listen, for me, it's not an immediate sell. I mean, I'm a huge Blade fan, so I may watch the film when it comes out. Not sure if it would be in the theaters or not yet. May very well not be. So, depending on whether or not they go R with the character, which I don't believe they will, but I don't see Blade. I don't see Blade being a PG-13 character or Deadpool. Um, I've seen a lot of arguments about Once Upon a Deadpool and how funny that was. Um, yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was funny, but it's not Deadpool. It's not Deadpool funny. It's not. So when you remove a lot of that, you're essentially removing parts of what makes the character who they are. And I call back whenever I have these conversations. I call back films like even Logan that did so. That was just a fantastic film, and yes, it needed to be R. Listen, again, these characters are they are a product of their environment. That's the takeaway here. They are a product of their environment. They live in a violent, dark, gritty world. If you remove that, then what remains of the characters themselves? You're completely changing who the character is. If you take away the environment that made he or she the character that they actually are. So that's the takeaway. These characters are a product of their environment. So you change the environment, you change who the characters actually are. So it would be interesting to see. I mean, whether fans for Moon Knight and Blade will soon be on board. I imagine there will be more. But for those like me who prefer, I mean, the characters to remain true to who they actually are, I may or may not. We'll see. We'll see how it's how the films are actually done, the direction that they actually take it. Mahershala Ali, who was cast as Blade, who was announced to be playing Blade, he's a fantastic actor. And I've not seen him in anything that I didn't like, even in smaller roles. I was watching Battle Angel Alita the other day, and because I didn't get a chance to catch it in the film, sadly, it was not good because that film. I don't think we need a sequel. I watched the anime. I might have read the manga some time ago, but it was an OVA. It was maybe perhaps two OVAs for the anime. So the story could literally end here, but it does leave room for them to build on if they want to. But I raise that because Mahershala plays a relatively small role in Battle Angel Alita, and even with that, he killed a performance in it. So, I'm not seeing him in anything that I do not like. He's a fantastic actor, and I have no doubt that he would be a brilliant Blade. I honestly would have preferred Michael B. Jordan as Blade, but because he played Killmonger before in the MCU, I imagine it would cause a bit of confusion, so they chose not to, unfortunately. So, but that also begs a question because Mahershala also played Cottonmouth in Luke Cage, which has the series has hinted that it's a part of the MCU or the same events that happen in the MCU. So technically, he's still playing two characters, but I guess Cottonmouth is not as well known as Killmonger in the MCU itself. So it's a smarter choice to make, but they could have gone with a different actor. I suppose for name recognition. I mean, it's a film, they try to have big names attached to it, and I'm happy for Mahershala that he gets the opportunity to join the MCU as well. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, with the R-rated, even Deadline reported that one of the Disney films that was slated for release, Book of Enchantment, was actually cancelled as well because of the concerns that it may be going in a somewhat dark direction. It was intended to be similar to Maleficent, where it would actually be following the villain's perspective as opposed to the protagonist. So I mean that would have been interesting, but and that's the thing. Disney cannot make films like they can't make films like this. If a director or if a writer comes to them and proposes a unique take on a story, which can at times go in a dark direction, the answer is going to be no. And that's my concern here, because the more properties that Disney swallows up and takes control over, the more limitations there are in terms of the kind of projects that we will be getting, because they will want the majority of these to end up on their streaming platform. And if their platform dictates immediately that no, it cannot be R, then you're putting the creators in a box that they must check they must check this before they can actually write or create. And that's just not, I don't care whether you are whatever fandom you think you might be from. That's limiting creativity, and that should never be something that you're actually for. So I mean, we'll watch it as it unfolds. I don't see, I mean, given Disney has some pretty loyal fans, so I don't see the lack of R rating hurting them for the most part. But I personally, I would like to be able to access, and I've said this to a lot of my friends and people that I've met and had this discussion with, is that movie and film should be a reflection of real world. Art imitates life, right? It should be a reflection of what happens in our everyday lives. And while the intention should never be to focus on just the bad things or the hardships or it should always be about perseverance. But with that, it shouldn't always be about I mean, sing-alongs and happy thoughts and just the fluff and the happy side of things. To persevere, you have to you are, at times you're required to overcome certain things. There's some certain things that are dark. That's part of what it means to be alive. You do have to go through some dark path to actually get to your destination at times, and art needs to imitate that. It can't just be that, okay, you're here. It's just that happy moment, that rainbow moment all the time, because that's not how life works. So art imitates life in its entirety. It needs to reflect both the good and the bad. And Disney's attempt to solely focus on just the good aspect of it is it's not appealing to me, because it's not what life is. It's not true to life, I suppose, is the best way to say it. It's not true to life. So I'm looking forward to see what other announcement they actually made, because short of the Star Wars announcements, again, as I've said, I'm not that huge a Star Wars fan where these announcements are enough to get me to be on board with Disney Plus. I'm not seeing any properties outside of Star Wars, and that's my concern, and that's what will get me on board with Disney Plus. I need to see other properties. I need to see dramas. I need to see some comedy. I need to see other stuff outside of just this one. They have, and don't get me wrong, the comic book properties are they're of course profitable. Star Wars, very profitable. And looking at the bottom line, Disney has no reason to explore beyond those two things: Star Wars and comic books, and they can continue with them for a long time. But what about those people who are not interested in either? And I am interested in comics, and I am interested in Star Wars, but I don't want to just only be watching things that are comic book related and only things that are Star Wars related. Where are the small indie films and the small dramas and I'm not seeing anything like that, and that needs to be a part of it, right? For me to get on board, I need to see unique properties outside of just Star Wars and comic books. While I have infinite love for comic books, and I can appreciate Star Wars. I need to see things outside of that, and that's what's missing for me. That's what's missing, and I don't, perhaps, I mean, perhaps things like that are available on Hulu. I don't know. Nothing that has sparked my interest that I'm like, I must get Hulu so I can watch this. Not yet. So I'm still a bit reserved, but a lot of good things, definitely a lot of good things coming out of D23. If you are a fan of Star Wars, if you're a fan of the MCU, then you definitely have a slate of films and TV shows that you can actually look forward to, and that is that's a world of excitement. So as I mentioned before, some exciting news in the world of gaming. Telltale Games is back. It's back. Yeah, of course, most notably for their feature games, Wolf Among Us and The Walking Dead, and the Batman games as well. Um, it came as a bit of a surprise when the company went under, for lack of a better word, because for many of us, they've been doing such a fantastic job with storytelling. It's one of those rare companies where it's a small studio, and they're not making tentpole, AAA titles, but they have such a unique take on how the stories unfold, how the stories are told, giving the user a choice, which is so rare in the industry these days. That it became renowned for just that. And I've not played one of their games and left feeling disappointed, and I think many fans feel the same way. So when the company, when they went on, it was like, why? Well, I remember seeing the news and I was like, what the hell? I mean, for all I knew, they were doing well because the games were so well received. But I mean, it speaks to a larger conversation, one that I'll touch on a bit later on, about where the gaming industry is heading and how it's somewhat reflective of the film industry now. But we'll touch on that a bit later. So um, I was totally caught by surprise when I heard the news, and disappointed again because I believe we were slated to receive a game for Stranger Things, and Stranger Things is a fantastic series, and because of how Stranger Things, the series itself, is structured, it felt like Stranger Things plus Telltale Games was just a match made in heaven, because Stranger Things is so story driven. It's a character piece, and to that effect, it would have complemented the Telltale Games and their writers, and it would have just been a fantastic game. Because watching Stranger Things, I mean, how many of us would not have wanted to be in the shoes of one of those kids or characters, going through that, experiencing the choices that they've had to make? It would have been fantastic, and that was one of the games that I was looking forward to the most from them. And then when the news hit, I was like, wow, how did this happen, right? And so I mean, a few days ago, the announcement came that they would be returning, and I'll be honest, initially I was like, yes, they're back. And then I don't know, slowly. I mean, I saw some tweets from it. It's a bit mixed. It's one of those bittersweet moments where initially, I mean, it seems like great on the surface, on paper, it feels like it's great news. And the reports are that some industry executives purchased the studio, and again, I initially saw this as a good thing, but then I started seeing tweets from persons who are part of Telltale Games, and their perspective that, okay, this may be great for these new owners, but it's not so great for us, right? And well, I mean, when we look at it, over 90% of the staff was actually let go, and according to the team, they've filled key positions in the company with the old staff, but they deliberately didn't specify what roles were filled, or by who, and the majority of which are contractually employed. And so with that, I mean, it's just a sad state of affairs. It is, because initially when the company went under, it was like, okay, the reports were that it was a result of mismanagement and staff being treated poorly, and you don't necessarily know what the true picture is because you're not there, you're not there. But from what a lot of these staff members who were a part of the original team, what they've tweeted and what they've said is that I mean, TellTale was their family, and they actually, it's one of those sad situations where they actually enjoyed going to work every day, and that's, listen, no matter where, I don't care where you work, whether you are whether you're working in some fast food industry, or you're self-employed, or whether you work in some corporate business, that is what every single person wants, to be able to actually want to go to work, to enjoy doing what you actually do. And these persons actually had that for a moment, and then it was just taken away from them. And so I don't know, reading some of the tweets just made me, it was sad, and it just dampened my initial reaction, because oftentimes we hear these announcements and we hear these things that on the surface sound as though they're great, but we're not looking at how the people involved are being affected. I mean, I spoke about Disney earlier, and this rings true, and brings me back to the similarities with this with the gaming industry and the film industry as well. Disney's acquisition of Fox Studios, for example, and all the fans were excited. Yeah, Disney's gonna get back the X-Men, and they can do Fantastic Four right. But what about the Fox staff that would no longer have a job, and those that will eventually be laid off? Like, think of it what you mean. Disney may have promised that, okay, yeah, we're gonna keep a number of these staff members, but look at the trend over time. Eventually, when you have two positions, two exact positions being filled by different persons, representing Fox, one representing Disney, eventually one is going to take priority over the other, because Disney is in the business of making blockbuster movies, and having two persons performing the same job, and I can tell you, when it comes to the bottom line, eventually someone is going to get cut, and it's not going to be the Disney staff member, it's going to be the one from Fox. So I mean, bringing us back to TellTale, when these decisions are made and the information that comes out in public, sometimes it's important to dig a little deeper to find out what else is happening, what else is going on, who are the people that are affected by this. It's not a question that we often ask ourselves enough, but I mean, I'm guilty of it at times. I won't lie. I'm guilty of it a lot of times as well. And this was one of those instances where I was like, yeah, they're back. And then seeing some of the tweets from some of the staff, and they're like, okay, we just lost our family. It's great that the company is back, but everything that we've worked and developed, it's like it's no longer ours. And I don't know, it's a sad state of affairs. I mean, there is some hopes that we will get to see similar properties going forward if some of the staff that are being kept on continue to work. But there is some question as to whether we will even get Stranger Things or Walking Dead, because to my understanding, the licensing for those two properties has now expired, and so even if they do launch a new game, it may be under it may not be TellTale, it may be something totally different. I imagine they will keep TellTale because of the brand recognition, but will it be the same team? And I don't know, will we get the same love and creativity that we see in these titles that they've put forward before? And we just don't know. We don't know. And again, coming back to my point about the similarities between the film and the gaming industry now, it's it speaks to these larger companies that are essentially just gobbling up all the small players in the market. And I, again, there's always an argument to be made on two fronts, and there's some benefits to it, admittedly, right? A lot of these smaller companies and it's a cycle, because a lot of these small companies are going under because they can't afford, they don't have the resources to make all these grand video games have become something of a spectacle now, similar to in the way movies are. It's a big event, right? Look at things like Mortal Kombat or the Injustice games. When Injustice is announced and everybody, and Mortal Kombat that was just released, everyone stops what they're doing. The trailer for Mortal Kombat, the games are not releasing trailers now. I mean, 10 years, 20 years ago, where the hell were you going to be seeing a video game trailer, right? It just wouldn't happen. But now the video games are an event. It's a spectacle, similar to the way movies are. So you have trailers coming out for specific characters, trailers coming out for announcements, gameplay trailers it's a spectacle. And so I mean, again, there are benefits to it. There are benefits to it. There's more exposure, but again, the small players, small companies, small development companies do not have the resources to do that. And so they remain under the radar, and they slowly lose customers, and eventually they have to sell to some larger company. The very same companies that contributed to them going under in the first place. And then the cycle just continues. So we see it in films, and we're seeing it now in video games as well. It's unfortunate. It really is. And I mean, I try to support those small indie games and the indie films and stuff wherever I can, because oftentimes those are. It's interesting that we've commercialized both film and gaming to such an extent that we can't see it, but the in terms of quality, it's often the smaller films that deliver on that. The larger companies, again, it's a spectacle. It's we see the explosions, and we see the grand performances, and we think, okay, this is all that there is, but it's not. And if in my experience, oftentimes it's the small companies that deliver quality work, because they love what they do, and you can see it and you can feel it. And so look at CD Projekt Red, for example, which I'll be discussing next. But I give them praise whenever I can, because initially when they started out, I mean, they were a small team, and they poured sweat and blood into that property, and the Witcher games are today one of my favorite of all time. And again, it's because they put in the hard work. Their aim wasn't, and it continues, and it's impressive. It continues that their aim is to make a good game, not to meet a deadline. And let's draw some parallels, right? Oftentimes people are afraid to call names, but hey, look at it. It is what it is. We have, for example, Nintendo, which arguably, I grew up with Nintendo. My first console was a SNES, and I loved playing those games. I grew up playing those games. But the Nintendo of today, I don't know. Let's put it this way. I do not currently own a Switch, right? And one of the titles that I was looking forward to the most was actually the Pokemon game coming up, because I'm a huge fan. I grew up with it, and the game that is slated for release at the end of this year is essentially an incomplete game. But the bottom line and the focus for Game Freak, I know I said, listen, Nintendo owns not majority share, but they have shares in Game Freak, so they have an impact in what Pokemon titles actually come out. Let's not pretend that they don't. They have sway. That is why all the Pokemon titles have remained on Nintendo's consoles to date, and it won't change unless something huge happens. It's not going to change. So Nintendo and Game Freak, right, are attempting to meet their deadline for November this year for Christmas sale. So they're releasing an incomplete game, and many fans are arguably pissed, and understandably so, right? And so again, it's a large company. It has the resources to do what needs to be done, but the love and the care and devotion that needs to be put into it is just not there anymore. It used to be, but it sure as hell isn't anymore. And I have to credit CD Projekt Red because they've gotten. I mean, they don't have as many titles obviously under their belt, but the games that they do make, the small number of games that they do make, it's unmatched. It's unmatched. So I mean I got to give credit where credit is due, and they've done a fantastic job, and I can't fault them for it. And they've continued to do that even with the rising popularity of their titles. They continue to be right now. CD Projekt Red is the company that I have my eye on. Whenever they release anything, I'm on board with it because I know I can expect quality games, and their agenda isn't to meet a deadline that if the game isn't ready, it's not ready. That's CDPR. If it's not ready, it's not ready. And people have been pushing even for Cyberpunk 2077, which I'll be discussing in a bit, that they've been developing this game for years. Even while The Witcher was in development, they've been developing Cyberpunk for years. And people have been pushing, where's the game? And their response is that it will be ready when it's ready. And that's how it should be. So I mean, we are at a position now where, unfortunately, this will not be the last TellTale games. We're going to see similar things happening going forward, and it saddens me to some extent because I'm not sure the benefits outweigh the disadvantages, because all these unique titles falling under one umbrella, it just becomes commercialized, and it's just a matter of meeting your quota so that we can have revenue at the end of the year. That's it. It's not. The objective is not to make a good game anymore. Once these large companies gobble up the small guys, that's the objective. That's a new objective. It's not to make a good game anymore. It's to meet a deadline and to meet a bottom line, and that's just unfortunate. It is. Now, spoke about Cyberpunk before and CD Projekt Red. Of course, earlier this week, Cyberpunk, CDPR released Cyberpunk's Deep Dive, a 15-minute long trailer, and I'm in awe. It was fantastic. Of course, it was a 15-minute gameplay, essentially giving us a better look. The last trailer that we got, I believe, was at E3, and it gave us. We were introduced to Johnny Silverhand, which, of course, being played by Keanu Reeves. And it gives us an insight into Night City and what we can expect. That the focus of that trailer was more about Night City than anything else. And this particular 15-minute trailer was more focused on the builds that you can actually have. It's something of a class system, although it's fluid in a way that it's not really a class because of how in the way that they describe the system, the level system. It's fluid, right? So you're not really confined to staying in one particular space. You can if you want to, but you can add and remove skills as you see fit by way of body modification. So it's very interesting. I'm blown away. I'm loving it, and they focus mainly on two solo builds and net runners. The net runners, of course, will definitely be my selection going into this game. The solo build focuses more on brawn and body modifications to make yourself, somewhat invincible. But your focus is on physical strength as a solo, as a strong solo. But for the net runners are what I felt Watch Dogs should have been. I played the first Watch Dogs game. I didn't play the others because, I played the second one. And then I stopped because the second Watch Dogs, it felt as though it was trying to be two things at once. It wasn't sure if it wanted to be stealth or guns blazing, right? And oftentimes, even when you're on a mission that requires stealth, somehow you're forced to actually go in guns blazing. And listen, I know it's a fictional world, it's a video game, and of course you can do anything you want to, but no hacker is going to. He's a hacker. He parkours and jumps over things, and he can light up a machine gun. No, no. Look, just felt like, okay, yeah. You watch Hackers. If any of you have watched, it's a very old movie, but still pretty decent. If any of you who have watched the Hackers movie, with Angelina Jolie and that guy whose name I can never remember, but imagine Hackers, but with the characters. Nerds, although they may be, were trained with using high-powered weapons as well. It was just a bit jarring. So I didn't feel as though Watch Dogs knew what it was trying to be, but here CD Projekt Red seems to have gotten it down. And listen, I know there are a lot of criticisms, and I do have my reservations in terms of the perspective, because being in first person, especially coming from The Witcher 3, it's gonna be something I'm gonna have to learn to adapt to. But by no means does that break the game for me, right? I'm not a huge fan of first person shooters. I've played them, but yeah, they're just there. And some people have made the argument that this would have been better served in third person, and I can't not agree with them. They make good points. But CD Projekt Red, I trust them, and I understood the point that they made as well, in that the character's perspective is important, and especially where you have you're mostly going to be reliant on weapons and abilities that are long range. It doesn't serve well in third person. If you've played Grand Theft Auto or any of those games that are structured in the very same way, it can get a bit clunky, and you don't have the kind of the tight control that you actually want, which you do require in this game. So I get the criticisms about it being better off in third person, but most games that are shooters in third person are not. It just doesn't work very well. It doesn't work very well, and so I kind of understood what the CD Projekt Red wants to accomplish here. The perspective that you need to have. Even if you're an Android, you shouldn't be able to see the back of your head. And it adds an extra layer of challenge to the game, because in third person, let's be real. In Grand Theft Auto, again, because you're in third person, in some instances you can actually, you can see 360 degrees. That's not humanly possible. So it takes a level of realism out of the game, and you have a wider view that you wouldn't otherwise have if you were the player on the ground. So I understand CD Projekt Red's claim that okay, that perspective suits this game more, and I can live with it. I'll learn to adapt to it, and more importantly, this is a story-driven game, right? Again, the third person worked well in Witcher 3 because it was swordplay. It wasn't reliant on using heavy weapons. And even when you're using the crossbow, it's challenging. It is challenging. So again, I would have preferred third person if this was mostly a melee game, but because it's not, I can understand why they chose to go first, especially after playing Watch Dogs. The controls was a goddamn mess, and with good reason. So that aside, it's a story-driven game, and the story that I've seen so far, I absolutely love. The cyberpunk genre, and I'm just a bit to touch on it, because I'm just glad that the genre itself is making such a huge comeback. Cyberpunk the cyberpunk genre itself isn't innate to anime, but it's the first exposure that I've gotten to anime. So watching things like Ghost in the Shell, which is my favorite anime of all time, Ghost in the Shell is just fantastic. Battle Angel, Alita, Metropolis. Um, they're just Akira. There are a lot of them out there, and to see the genre make the comeback that it has now, especially in gaming, I'm just over the moon with it. It's it's a good time to be alive. It's a good time to be alive. I mean, I was thinking about doing a video on some of the cyberpunk properties that have contributed to the genre over the years. So I mean, we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. But from what the story that I've seen so far in the game, I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. I've seen some criticisms after watching, um, and look, I went to IGN's page to watch the 15-minute trailer, and oh my God, some of the comments are just so. All right, if you have not, first of all, if you've not seen the deep dive Cyberpunk trailer, be sure to go and check it out, and be sure to post a comment there just to piss off those. If you have a valid point to make it. You can make a point without without bashing the studio. I feel, and I don't believe these are fans of CD Projekt Red or even Witcher series. These seems to be um, fans from Activision and first person shooter fans that are jumping over now to CD Projekt Red and bringing all their toxicity from the other titles to this game. And to them, I say, just relax, okay? Settle down, relax, shut the hell up, relax. Um, so it can be disheartening reading the comments, but watch the video, leave a positive comment so that the team themselves, CD Projekt Red, knows you're on board. If you like what you see. If you don't like what you see, fine. Um, make a comment. Just say what it is you do not like about it. The last trailer that they released, it's a bit controversial now. There were some comments about the character's sexuality, the choice that you make going into the game, and it's something that they've actually removed. I don't know if perhaps they removed it for this video, or they removed it from the game, to not have non-binary selection. But look, I hope they didn't. While it's important to take take criticism from the fans out there, and I do not want that to influence the vision that the artists have. Now, if they were going out of their way to discriminate or something to that effect, then I would understand, but they're not. And if you've played any of their games before, you know they do not. So I don't know, CD Projekt Red. I know you're trying to do the correct thing, to be right by everyone, every single customer out there, but you're never going to be able to please every single person. Believe me, you will not be able to. Focus on making the game the vision, the game that you want to make. Where there are constructive criticisms, take them, yes, but I don't believe this to be one of them. I just don't think it is. At least not at this juncture, right? So that aside, going back to the game itself, it focused mainly again on the two builds that you can actually make. Netrunner is of course going to be my choice. There's no question about it. I've always chosen stealth above anything else, and it's one of the reasons why I'm still waiting on that Splinter Cell game. Yeah, I'm still waiting. Still waiting. No Splinter Cell? No. I'll just keep waiting. So Netrunner is definitely going to be my build, because as a Netrunner you're able to hack into different entities to gain access to environments. You can hack opponents, their body parts, hack their arms so that if they're shooting at you, because everyone is jacked in, you can literally hack anything, and that's just phenomenal to me. So that is going to be my choice. So it focused on a particular area called Pacifica in Night City, which is described as one of those areas where you do not want to go to. It's pretty much the Skellige of Witcher 3, and so it's the world is it's one of 6 areas in Night City from what I'm told. And if this plays out in the same way that the Witcher 3 series did, Each area will be massive, and it sounds like it's even larger than The Witcher 3. And I don't know. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm waiting. But the game itself, again, it continues to look fantastic. The gameplay, the visuals, the soundtrack. I haven't seen anything in the trailer that I do not like. Some of the comments again keep saying CD Projekt Red that they're liars, that they're liars. And what are they lying about? What are they lying about? I don't pay them no mind, right? And my assumption was that okay, this has something to do with the choices, the branches in the choices that you do make in the game having an impact later on. So if you choose not to kill someone, will that impact your gameplay later on? Yes or no? Situations like that. So I suppose the criticism is that true or not? And my response would be: have you played a Witcher game? Have you played The Witcher 3? It's something they have done before. So it's frustrating with some of these fans. If you're going to criticize the game, at the very least, do some research before you do it, so you do not sound like a complete idiot. So it's something CD Projekt Red has done before, and they're applying that to this game as well. It worked fantastic in Witcher 3, and they've said that it will be even more intricate in Cyberpunk, right? So check out the video. Be sure to leave a positive comment. Support CD Projekt Red. They're one of the few developers around now that make quality content, no microtransactions in their games, and they actually deliver on what it is that they promise to deliver. And more importantly than that, they've actually, they've actually, with the add-ons that you have access to later on, right? The Blood and Wine expansion pack, for example, that was not better than the main storyline, the main game, but it was pretty close. It was pretty close. It was more than 50%. The map was more than 50% larger than the actual main game, and that's an expansion pack, right? And they don't force you to pay an arm to get an expansion pack of that level, of that detail, with that much content in it. So listen, support the developers. They're one of the best out there, one of the few who actually deliver on their promises, and you will not be disappointed, right? With that, some boring news. CD Projekt Red released their financial report earlier on, and apparently the first half of this year they had a 26% increase in revenue, and they've actually sold more units in the first half of this year than they did the first half of last year. And I'm glad that the games continue to do so well. The Witcher 3 titles continue to do as well as they have been doing, and The Witcher is everywhere now that you look. Now that it's going to the Switch, I imagine they're going to be doing even better. Right? I'm glad to see a lot of the Switch players being able to experience what we have for the past few years. And I'm actually in the middle of doing a replay for The Witcher 3 as well. Taking an unusual direction this time with some magician mod that I've seen that looks interesting, that I think would make for an interesting gameplay. So I'm gonna try it. I played the game several times, but Geralt himself being a part of Monster Hunter and Soul Calibur, and he's just been all over the place. And the interest in the characters continued to grow. Interest in the game has continued to grow. Even persons who are not fans of the games know about the games. And it's no coincidence that this growth in revenue coincides with the announcements that Netflix has made, regarding their series. So, newfound interest in The Witcher, the Netflix series, in the novels, in the game, it has helped revenue, and that's something that's always good to see. So it contributes to their bottom line. and that's great. And with that, um, they have announced that they will be adopting a dual franchise business model going forward. And as to whether that's a good or bad thing, I mean, it could go either way. In this instance, because of what CD Projekt Red has done so far, I can see this working to their advantage. Now, I mean, working using a dual franchise business model essentially means they will be focusing on two games, as it states, um, and again, it mitigates some of the risks that they would otherwise run into, similar to what we've seen with, again, TellTale games, right? They have CDPR has limited resources as well, and being able to focus on two titles, and presumably it's going to be the focus will be on The Witcher and on Cyberpunk, which means they have a lot more content in store for Cyberpunk as well, which, yeah, that's just fantastic. But it also means that they have other Witcher properties in mind as well, which is interesting. But yeah, they're focused on dual franchise, two games. It allows for them to utilize the resources that they have rather than working their programmers and their developers into the ground to work on multiple titles, to meet deadlines, to meet bottom line sales. They focus on just two titles. That gives them the opportunity to ensure that their staff are well taken care of, because if your staff aren't good, then the property will, the end result, the product will not be good. So they're mitigating some of the risk in putting too much pressure on their staff, but at the same time, it means their staff can focus on these two properties. And listen, if you try to do several things at once, brush your teeth, drink coffee, balance a ball on your head, whatever you want to do, try to do. You're never going to be able to do all at once and achieve the maximum output for each. It's just not going to happen. So if you limit yourself to focusing on just this one or two, then the odds of the output being the best, or the improvements in the quality is unlimited, right? So they're focusing on just these two properties mean they can refine The Witcher, tell the stories they want to tell, but ensure that it's the best quality game that there is, that the fans actually deserve. So it's a good time for CD Projekt Red. I'm glad that they're doing as well as they are doing. I mean, I mentioned before that this could actually mean for the Witcher series. So with the focus on dual franchise, it does mean that they again focus on Cyberpunk, but also focus on the Witcher series. I was under the impression that they were done with Witcher 3. After Witcher 3, they were done. And that was in part due to their relationship with the author Andrzej Sapkowski. But I mean, if they still have the license for The Witcher, then I suppose they're still able to make games. But is Geralt's story end over? Right? If Geralt's story has ended, does that mean that we can get a Witcher game following Ciri? And that's something that I would be on board for. Ciri's an adult now, or outside of Witcher 1 and 2, but she's all grown up now. In Witcher 3, we were able to play as her character for a bit. And unlike Geralt, I mean, she has some magic. Well, Geralt has magic, but signs are a bit different. But she can teleport and all of that stuff. So it would be interesting to see a game with Ciri in the lead. And so I'm excited about the prospect of having another Witcher game following Ciri. And or it could just be more Gwent games, which I have no problem with whatsoever. It's fantastic. So I'm hopeful for the future for The Witcher, and I can't wait to see more for Cyberpunk 2077. So CD Projekt Red seems to be going in the right direction. They're making the right choices for the games, for the fans, for their staff. Again, as a hardcore RPG gamer, from my very first console, my first game that I played, Final Fantasy 3, I believe. I've been an RPG lover since day one. And Witcher 3 so far is the pinnacle where RPG games are concerned. So I CD Projekt Red. I cannot support them enough. So again, if you've not played Witcher 3, be sure to go and check it out. They've made amazing titles. If you've not yet sold on Cyberpunk 2077, be sure to go and check out the trailer. It's fantastic. It's as a gamer, even if you're not an RPG gamer, I believe it's something that you can enjoy. So be sure to go and check it out and support CDPR. They've again, as I've said them a million times, but I'm going to say it again. They're one of the few few video game developers to watch now. They've been doing a fantastic job. They deliver and they deliver and they deliver and they prioritize the quality of the games on as opposed to speed and meeting deadlines. And bottom line, they care about their gamers. They care about their staff, and they've continued to deliver over and over again. So if Cyberpunk 2077 was not at the top of your list, you need to put it there now. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the RePlay podcast. Be sure to follow me over at Twitter at studio_replay for this and discussion on other related topics. And I'll see you guys next time.